Welcome to the forest and to my cabin. My name is Roaming Rubezahl. Sit down. I just made tea. I hope that'll suit you. Are you a traveler, perhaps? Or maybe you've just lost your way. Whatever the case, seeing as it is your first visit, I will inform you of the goings-on. I have seen many seasons and a number of curious things. After some deliberation, I have decided that these things should be known to outsiders like you. However, not all these things I tell you will be easy to listen to. If you decide to visit again, the style of the stories you hear may change. Today I will be telling you 2 stories. Would you like to pull your chair closer to the table? I can show you drawings which may aid in my storytelling experience. Unwanted visitors deep in the woods. In my college days, now 20 years ago, me and my friends often took off for the North Georgia mountains on the weekend. When we wanted to smoke, drink, and commune with nature, these mountains were perfect. On the weekend this unsettling event occurred. Me, my friend Bill, and his German Shepherd Monty headed out towards Sky Valley. It was the beginning of fall semester at UGA, and not much was going on yet. We had found an area where a dirt road led back half a mile, and then we would hike in another mile or so and set up camp near a creek. Excellent hiking trails were nearby, and there were fun places to explore. Not to mention the flat ground was perfect for setting up camp. Bill and I arrived at our spot around 4 p.m. and got a fire going. We were musicians, Bill a guitar player and me a percussionist, so we sparked up a joint and started jamming. Around 10, after jamming a while, we chatted about life and girls before tucking in for the night. It was a clear night, so we just slept under the stars. It is important to note we never had seen any sign of other people in the area during our other trips. At about 2 a.m., I was woken by Monty growling. It was a deep, guttural growl. Bill was still dead to the world, and I sat up and looked around and listened, thinking maybe an animal had come near our sight. The fire was only embers at this point. I heard barely audible voices in the distance. Focusing on the area of the voices, I saw a faint red glow, followed by another faint red glow to the left of the first. This was about 100 yards away. My mind connected what I was seeing. Cigarette embers burning, and they were getting closer. "Bill! Wake up!" I whispered. Bill roused from his sleep, and I explained what was going on. At this point, Monty started barking as the strangers approached the camp. By the time we stood up, they were in the camp, completely unfazed by the now rabid, 70-pound German Shepherd. 2 incredibly unkempt late 30s, early 40s deliverance-looking mofos walked up on us. Bill told Monty to calm down. I'll never forget the look of these guys. Skinny as hell, about 5'8", shirts caked in grime, mangy beards, and probably 5 teeth between the 2 men. Each had huge knives attached to their belt buckles. "What are you boys doing out here? Look like you're having a good time." We responded and told them we'd been out there to camp and drink some beer. They asked if we had any weed, and we gave them a joint. They looked around a bit and asked if we wanted to smoke with them. We declined, saying we were headed out early. Throughout the conversation, anything Bill or I said, they looked at each other before responding. Finally, before they left, one of them said, "Y'all stay safe. You never know who you could run into out here," followed by a laugh as they walked away. We packed up early and left. Well, this isn't as creepy as other stories. These guys were the epitome of backwood redneck. The fact that we only awoke because of the dog still sketches me out to this day. chased down through a dark forest. This happened a long time ago. I'd say this happened when I was around 8, so 11 years ago. My family and I were on a holiday in Spain, in a city close to Barcelona. We went to a very big and luxurious resort with tons of sports fields. From basketball to soccer, it took up a lot of space, and it had tall fences around the perimeter to make sure no one could get in at night. To give you some perspective, I think they had 8 soccer fields, 4 basketball courts, and 2 rugby fields, and probably some more. During the day, all the fields were full of people playing sports, and it was always a ton of fun there. But at night, the perimeter closes. I stayed late with a friend. I don't remember his name, so we'll call him Brian. So Brian and I didn't want to go home yet, so we stayed a little bit longer to shoot penalties on the soccer field. Eventually, they closed the fence, but since we were too far away for them to see us, and vice versa, we only found out the fence was closed when we tried to leave. This was already scary. It was a huge, unlit place in a foreign country surrounded by big fences. After freaking out for a bit, we decided we didn't want to get into trouble, so we set out to follow the fence to look for holes through which we could escape instead of calling for help. After a solid 20 minutes, we find a hole, but it's not connected to the resort, but to a dark forest. We figured it wasn't a very large forest and that we would be safe given it was right next to the resort. We go through the hole and start crossing the forest. A mere 5 minutes later, we enter a large bare spot with an old, damaged, graffiti-covered concrete shed. We avoided as best we could, but soon we hear some glass bottles moving around in the shed. Out walks this man. He stares at us for a solid 10 seconds as we are paralyzed by fear. He looked very deranged, probably had been homeless for the larger part of his life. His clothes were ripped, his hair and beard was very long and disgusting. He even had a limp. He coughs, which wakes up another man in the shed. This man looks exactly like Charles from Breaking Bad. They start to slowly walk in our direction, talking to us in Spanish. We slowly back up. They see this and charge. They start running, screaming, and throwing stuff at us. We are running for our lives. The forest is pitch black. We can barely see ahead of us, let alone see if there's any end to this seemingly infinite forest. After about 10 minutes of running, we reached the edge of the forest. We were on a small town road next to a huge cliff. No houses, no people, still being chased. We follow the road uphill, finally gaining some ground on the homeless psychopaths. The road ends. The only thing we see is a mansion without any burning lights. We figure it's all or nothing, and we climb their gate and hide in their backyard. The homeless men follow us, but by the time they manage to get in where we are, we're already hidden in some dense, dark bushes. They made quite a bit of noise, which woke up the residents. Out comes a man screaming and looking around the garden. He closely passes us, but doesn't see us. He is holding a gun. Didn't get close to look, but I think it was a shotgun, an older one that holds 2 shells. He obviously spots the homeless men and fires a warning shot into the air. The Charles-looking man charges him, but gets knocked down. He forces the homeless men out of the garden at gunpoint. We felt safe for a second until we realized that we were in the shotgun-wielding man's garden and that we didn't know where the homeless men were. We wait a little bit to be sure that the man is asleep and that the homeless men have left. When we leave, I think about 30 minutes later, the men are gone and the roads are quiet. We follow the same road, but downhill, and run into a small town. We still have no idea where we are. It has been about 3 hours since we left the resort, and we finally realize what has happened and freak out. After walking for 10 to 15 minutes, we see a house with people in the living room. We ring the bell and try to ask the way. Most Spanish people don't speak Dutch, and we didn't really speak English, so it didn't go very well. We told her the name of the resort, and she points downhill. This seems like a fairly standard road. We stick closely to the houses and follow it. I didn't know this at the time, but apparently there was an abandoned slaughterhouse close to the entrance of the resort. We heard Dutch voices from somewhere around the building, so we go and ask for directions. Enter a bloody hellhole. Everywhere is blood. On the floor, on the walls, on the equipment, and even on the ceiling. Bloody knives everywhere. Wasn't a very nice experience. The other people run into us, and we ask for directions. It's a 2-minute walk away. When we finally get to the resort, the staff don't let us in because they don't know if we're residents of the resort. They make us call our parents and ask them to come and get us. There were still pancakes left when I got back, and I played Pokemon with my brother. My mom gave me 10 euros for the arcade the next day, which is when my bike got stolen. We have come to the end of the story portion of your visit. I hope you enjoyed them. Now I think it is fitting we finish off with some discussion of my drawing. All the art that I do is done in Sketchbook Pro. Sketchbook Pro is a great free program. I think that this piece is very important because of the two techniques that I learned. The first technique I learned was using the duplicate function. This technique really sped up my progress, creating a very light and airy feathered texture. Without this function, I would not have been able to achieve the look I was going for in a decent amount of time. The second technique that I learned was creating my own brush. This proved difficult because feathers do not link end to end in real life like a brush paints them. I think that it is very important to show me learning these techniques opposed to me practicing and already knowing them. I originally learned the second technique from one of my all-time favorite artists, Trent. I will link his video in the description. Now I would like to discuss some of the reasons for why I created this piece. Originally, when I set out to create this painting, I was going for an undead raven. I ended up going a bit more abstract, which can be seen with the designs on the skull and the red feathers. There are two main things in this painting that I am not 100% happy with. Firstly, I would have liked to give the raven more depth. I feel that it looks very flat. I believe that if I had spent another hour on this piece, I would have achieved this. I was also thinking partway through that I could have given the raven some outstretched wings. However, this would have added a considerable amount of time. The second thing I would have changed in this design is on the beak. This was my first time experimenting with this type of doodle design. My favorite part of the design is the scales along the beak. I would like to spend more time in this style in another video. All around, I am happy with the way this came out, and I'm eager to start the next project. If you guys are curious how I created the intro at the beginning, I could create a short video discussing my progress. Now the hour is late, and I am afraid that we have come to the end of today's visit. I hope you found some enjoyment. Mind your way on the step out the door, and keep your wits about you. Strange things go on in the forest at night.